Chinese University of Hong Kong. 13, quote, Confucians, and 13, quote, Christians. The dialogue is supposed to last for about a week. On the fourth day, to my happy surprise, I'm not being cynical, to my happy surprise, that out of the 13 Confucians, representing the Confucian side, 6 or 7 of them are also Christians. So in fact, what happened was that not only a Confucian-Christian dialogue, but also a Christian and Christian dialogue. It took me a while to understand what happened. First of all, I didn't feel that I was betrayed. I feel very honored and very pleased that these Christians are willing to represent the Confucian point of view in the dialogue. It took me a while to realize the following. What is the difference between a Confucian Christian and a non-Confucian Christian? A Confucian Christian will have to be politically concerned, socially engaged, and culturally sensitive. If you're not a Confucian. But can there be, is it possible for someone to be a non-Confucian Christian? Of course. As a Christian, I say I'm not interested in politics. I don't want to engage myself in society. I don't even care about culture. My faith is strong, is pure. Non-Confucian Christians. There are numerous non-Confucian Christians, maybe only a few Confucian Christians. Also with Buddhism, another fascinating thing. Right now, one of the most powerful trends in the Buddhist thinking, not only in East Asia, but also in Southeast Asia, is engaged with Buddhism. Not the Buddhism that is only interested in monastic way of life, but the Buddhism that is engaged in the world beyond. And more recently, I was involved in a Confucian Jewish dialogue in Tel Aviv. And one of the papers presented there, again, is an intriguing one. Can I be a Confucian Israeli? Many examples of this nature. I want to mention also about Islam. There are quite a few outstanding Islamic thinkers in China in the 17th, 18th century. Recently, we just finished a huge book on one of the great Islamic thinkers of the 17th, 18th century in China. I think his contribution eventually will be considered much greater in terms of originality and sophistication than what Martin Risch was able to do. And this, of course, will take some time. But anyway, Liu Zhi, and he considered himself a Confucian Muslim. And in fact, there was a term in Chinese tradition called Huiru. You can say Islamic Confucian or Islamic Confucian scholar. Now, what does it mean by being Confucian in this case? I realize, the question is often asked, is this a religion? Or is it philosophy? Or is it a form of ethics? Or is it a way of life? What it is. It seems that it is not something that is easily definable. That doesn't bother me at all. Anything that is easily definable is clear but simplistic. Something that cannot be defined is not necessarily chaos or confusion. Something that cannot, most of the things that we cherish cannot be defined, such as life, such as beauty, such as truth. None of these can be easily defined because there's a lot of what we call fruitful ambiguities. But we have to ask the question, since my own work in this area, what is the Confucian life orientation? I think Confucianism is not a religion. I put emphasis on the word a religion, because it's difficult to find a kind of Confucian priesthood or Confucian temple. The Confucian temple is the temple of the literati, so it's a different kind of idea. And the belief system and so forth. It's not a religion. But in Indonesia, Confucianism is a religion. We're established now constitutionally recognized. I don't want to go into that question, it's a different kind of issue. But it's not a religion, and yet we really have to underscore the religious, quote, spiritual dimension of the Confucian tradition. If someone asks me, is Confucianism a religion? And if the person implicitly argues against the idea that Confucianism is a religion, you know the definition or the understanding of religion of that questioner is basically monotheistic. If you say Confucianism is definitely not a religion, I can guess that your idea of religion is shaped by the three great monotheistic traditions. On the other hand, if you say Confucianism is definitely a religion, then my suspicion is that your definition of religion is so broad, it will include atheism, Maoism, all kinds of other traditions. So Confucianism becomes kind of litmus test of your conception of what religion is. So that, to me, is not a major question. The major issues, it is a humanistic tradition, but what kind? We can say, I am a humanist Christian, or I am a humanist Buddhist, or I am a Muslim with commitment to humanistic values. So if you have some broad conception of being humanistic, of course it's all embraced. But yet, there's a catch. I don't think Confucianism is a form of secular humanism, as the Enlightenment mentality indicates clearly is a form of secular humanism. As secular humanism, the Enlightenment tradition is quite insensitive to religious matters on one hand. It's quite aggressive to its nature. So knowledge is power. It's, if not control, or knowledge is a way of not to understand, but it's also a way to control, to subdue, and to exploit. The kind of humanism that is absolutely necessary for the 21st century then is a humanism that's not simply focused on anthropocentrism, on the human as the core of everything, or the idea man is the measure of all things. And this humanism has to be comprehensive, integrated. It will have to be able to respond to our need to care for the earth, for example. It has to be able to respond to the ultimate concern of the idea of the supreme values of Brahman, of Logos, of Allah, of God. It has to be able to open itself to both dimensions. Is it possible for us to imagine that this kind of humanism will emerge? My sense is that it's inevitable. Let's take two examples, the Christian example and the Buddhist example. It's not possible for a Christian leader today to make the pronouncement that we Christians are committed to the kingdom of God yet to come. We're committed to the things that are God's, the transcendent reality. The earth here is mundane, is profane, is worthless. So let's continue to pollute. No Christian leaders will be able to say it. It's not possible for the Buddhist leader to say we opt for the Pure Land, the other shore. This is just red dust. This world is going nowhere. Let's continue to pollute. No. So all religious traditions, especially great religious traditions, will have to develop two languages. One is the language specific to that religion, and the language so unique, it's not possible that it can be easily translated. This Christian language based on the Trinity, or resurrection, or virgin birth, and these the language, and the Buddhist language based upon Dharma, Nirvana, and transmigration, two different languages. So each tradition will have to be able to honor its own tradition in order to allow the tradition to be alive, to be developing, and to be transformed. But each and every major religious tradition will have to develop another language. That I would call the language of global citizenship. The global citizenship relates very much to the care for the earth, the importance of world governance, the cultivation of peace, the possibility of developing a dialogical civilization. And these two languages these two languages are often in tension, but there's no reason for us simply to conclude that these two languages are irreconcilable. This is the basis for my idea that dialogue, in the true sense of that term, is based upon a broad humanistic vision. It's not for conversion. It's not for the opportunity of making a statement about the truthfulness of my tradition. It's not even the occasion for trying to correct the misunderstanding of my tradition. It's not to convert, not to make a statement, not to correct a statement. But for what? For the cultivation of the art of listening, for trying to broaden my own horizon, intellectual and spiritual horizon, and try to enhance my own self-reflection. A dialogue of this nature is, of course, predicated on tolerance. And if you want to look at, let's say, Chinese tradition, or in that sense, Confucian tradition, it is very much of a learning civilization. That, I think, is beyond dispute, the emphasis on education and self-transformation. But it is also a dialogical and, in a way, a tradition that puts a lot of emphasis on religious tolerance. So you can have three teachers in one: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. All the Confucian cultural areas, China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, allow many different religions to coexist. In Japan, maybe 70, as Reichau has pointed out, maybe 70% are Shintoists, or consider themselves Shintoists, maybe 75% consider themselves Buddhists. And with Shintoists and Buddhists, they do not turn their back on Confucian ethics. So this possibility of dual membership is something quite unusual. But anyway, tolerance is the minimum condition. But we have to go beyond tolerance to recognize the existence of the others as irreducible. With this recognition, we can generate a sense of respect. With respect, we can begin to involve in mutual reference. And with mutual reference, we can have mutual learning. And eventually, we can even celebrate difference. The minimum condition for this kind of fruitful dialogue is the golden rule stated in the negative. Do not do unto others what you do not want others to do unto you. Because what you consider to be the best is not necessarily the best for your biological partner. Because you want to impose what you consider to be the best upon the others. And if the others also knows what is the best for him or her, and conflict is unavoidable. So that general assumption is to be maintained. Then there are four dimensions. I don't have time to go into any one of them. I'll just conclude the four dimensions that need to be taken into consideration. One is the question of the self. If you want to be dialogical, you better learn how to dialogue with yourself. Integration of the body and mind requires this kind of dialogical understanding. The second dimension, of course, is society or the community, variously understood from family all the way to the global community, even beyond. The third one is earth, and the fourth one is heaven, or the transcendent. So the dialogical mode will have to encompass not only personal self-understanding,